Hello, I'm Steve Groves. I'm the Swanherd here at Abbotsbury Swannery in Dorset. I'm currently stood in front of the duck decoy man's house, or what's left of it. There's a gentleman employed down here to catch ducks for the table, and he lived in this house until 1824 when most of the cottage was destroyed by a massive flood. The earliest written records we have of the Swannery date back to the 14th century, when there was a large monastery in the village, and the monks would basically farm the swans here for food. This went on for centuries until the reign of Henry VIII, when the monastery here at Abbotsbury was dissolved, like so many others in the country at the time. And then eventually it fell into the hands of the Fox Strangways family, the Earls of Ilchester, and their descendants still own the Swannery today. So I'm just a long line of swanherds here at Abbotsbury. The first recorded swanherd, although he was called a keeper of swans, was William Squiller, who was mentioned in the court rolls when he accidentally flooded the nest site and destroyed a lot of the swans' nests. So we're very careful we don't do that today. These pens are named after some of the previous swanherds. There's a very exhaustive list. Some have just been lost in the midst of time. But I'm just, like I say, I'm just one of a long line of swanherds here at Abbotsbury Swannery. And it's unique. I'm the only swanherd in the world. Okay, so I'm lucky enough to be the only swanherd in the world. But as at one time there was probably only the swanherd working here at the Swannery, now I have a whole team helping me do all the work that's necessary to manage the colony of swans. So there's a lot more history to the Swannery than just the swans. We're situated in the middle of a 50-acre reed bed, and reed is a very good thatching material, and traditionally the reed beds at Abbotsbury were used for thatching all the local cottages. Okay, so it's a bit of a myth that the royal family actually own all the swans in this country. Back in the Middle Ages, when cygnet meat was prized food, lots of rich landowners had the right to own their own swans. And the Abbey here at Abbotsbury had that right. And the swanherd's job at that time was literally to fatten the cygnets for the table. Thankfully, that's no longer part of my job role. Okay, so there's a lot more to the Swannery than just the swans. We're in the middle of a 50-acre reed bed, and traditionally the reeds were cut for thatching the local cottages. Some of it is still cut for thatching today, but we also leave a lot for the wildlife. Lots of really interesting wildlife live in reed beds, so it's a really good habitat. Any of the reeds that isn't suitable for thatching, we actually cut and provide the swans with nesting material. So it's a really good habitat for the swans to nest in. Okay, so the Swannery at Abbotsbury is the home to the only managed nesting colony of swans in the world. The colony itself is pretty unusual. Swans don't usually nest in colonies. People are aware that swans can be aggressive birds, but here at Abbotsbury they are much less aggressive. It's the only place in England they nest in a real colony. So the swans, as you can see, are really friendly. They don't tend to like the staff as much as they like the visitors, but they're being quite friendly today. The vast majority of the swans here at Abbotsbury, virtually all of them, are mute swans. The mute swan is the commonest swan in the UK. You can hear them grunting and snorting, so they're not exactly mute, but the other two species of swan which arrive in the winter are extremely noisy, very, very vocal. So that's why this species has become known as the mute swan. So the Swannery isn't just home to a nesting colony of swans. At any one time, there are a lot of non-nesting birds. Swans don't mature until they're 3 years of age. So a lot of these out here are 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds. And they usually start nesting when they're 3. The male swan, the cob, he averages about 13 kilos. The female, the pen, is only about 9 kilos. The average lifespan is 12-13 years, but they can live into their 20s. 30 is the maximum. They usually pair for life, but we do get the odd divorce. It does happen. And here at Abbotsbury, if they lose a mate, they're sport for choice. They can usually find another partner fairly quickly. As I talk now in August, the swans are just about finishing their annual wing molt. Swans and many other water birds have quite a strange molt strategy in that they actually shed all their flight feathers at once, and for a swan that means being flightless for 6 weeks. They know it's safe here, lots of water, so many swans will join our swans to come here to molt. During the molt we collect lots of their feathers. The really large primary feathers are used for calligraphy. Lloyd's of London actually still make quills from our swans to record lost ships, and lots of local it's gone.
Stay with it. So you were on the quilts.
Yeah, I was just trying to... calligraphers, that's the word I was looking for. So So yes, so also lots of local calligraphers use the swans, not some not so local calligraphers. So we send swans all over the country, send feathers, well, sorry.
From the top.
Okay, so some of the larger swans feathers, flight feathers, the primaries, the quills, are used for calligraphy. Lloyd's of London still record lost ships with an Abbotsbury quill pen, and lots of, it's gone again. Calligraphers. Okay, so during the swans molt, when the swans drop their flight feathers, we collect lots of them. The large quills, the primary feathers, are used for calligraphers. In fact, Lloyd's of London still record lost ships with an Abbotsbury quill pen. We also collect some of the fluffier feathers too. Our scapular feathers from the shoulder of the swan are sewn together by milliners, and they make the plumes that are used by the king's, come on, what are they called? What are they called? The king's guard? King's bodyguard?
Yeah, I can't remember what
King's Guard, isn't it?
Yeah.
King's
it
Guard.
used to be the Queen's Guard. That's what
King's Guard, yeah.
Okay. So also the scapular feathers, the long bendy feathers, are sewn together by milliners to make the plumes for the king's bodyguard. You see in ceremonial events. I don't know.
If you just say King's Guard.
The king's guard. Yeah.
Easy.
Okay.
Go for it.
So as well as the primary feathers, which are used for calligraphy, we also collect the scapular feathers from the shoulder of the swan. These are quite long and bendy, and these are sewn together by milliners to make the plumes for the king's guard. So originally owned by the monastery in Abbotsbury, which was pulled down by Henry VIII, he then took possession of all the monastic land around Abbotsbury, including the Swannery and the Swans. And then a few years later, he sold this to a commissioner of his, Sir Giles Strangways, and his descendants, who became the Earls of Ilchester, still own the Swannery today, and most unusually, they still own all the swans that hatch here.